Today I saw two videos, one by John Comic with Kids and the other by the great legend, fellow YouTubers. They were talking about films that they liked. They had unboxings. And it got me thinking about movies that I also like, movies that I frequently revisit. Now, categorizing movies and also picking your favorite is very challenging, at least for me it is. I could not tell you my favorite movie. I could not tell you my favorite novel. Nor could I tell you my favorite television series, nor could I tell you my favorite short story. Although recently I have been writing down favorite short stories. A while back I did a video about stories. I mean, where would we be without them? And what I want to show you are some movies that I like, movies that I frequently revisit, and that I often think about. The first is A Little Romance. It takes place in Paris. It was, I think, the first movie by Diane Lane. And it may be the last movie that Laurence Olivier ever made. The story is about a Houstonian girl who's in Paris, and she meets a little boy who has learned English by watching American films, especially those from the 30s and the 40s. So it's rather funny when he starts to quote Humphrey Bogart in his movies. And the story is about these two kids. They fall in love, and they get the idea from this old man, played by Laurence Olivier, that if they go to Venice, and if they go on the gondola on a certain time of the day, and they kiss, their love will last forever. The film was directed by George Roy Hill. Yes, George Roy Hill did the film. I remember when I saw the movie, I was quite surprised by it. I had not heard of it. And I think it was either the late 90s or the early 2000s when I first discovered this movie on television. And since then, it's been on my mind. The ending to this movie, as are the endings to all the films I'm about to show you, are memorable. If you are a subscriber to my channel, or you've seen some of my videos, I've mentioned that I live in Texas. One of our great filmmakers is Richard Linklater. The movie that put him on the map was Slacker, which takes place in Austin, the capital of Texas. I was living in Austin when he filmed that movie, and I remember I refused to go see it because I'm thinking, why would I see a film? I mean, when it premiered, why would I see a movie about the place that I live, right? But it certainly represents Austin the way it was back then. Austin is now an international city. It's almost unrecognizable. In any event, the Before Sunset films, Before Sunrise, Before Sunset, they are a trilogy. And it's Julie Delpy and Ethan Hawke. Ethan Hawke is, well, also a Houstonian, like Diane Ladd's character. And he's traveling to Europe, and he meets Julie Delpy in the film before this. They meet, if I remember correct, actually I don't remember where they met in Europe, but in this one they re-meet 9 years later in Paris. Linklater is an interesting filmmaker. He wrote this movie, and he credits Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy in the script. It's a movie that I found extremely moving when I saw it. I mean, the one before this, Before Sunrise. And then when I saw Before Sunset in the 2000s, it added another layer of depth. And if I remember correctly, in the story, they re-meet again while he is doing a book signing at Shakespeare and Company, which is a very famous bookstore in Paris. Linklater is, of course, known for Dazed and Confused, which was filmed in Austin, and is a wonderful movie. However, it's this trilogy here which I often revisit. And I think if you like a realistic love story or the potential of what love could be, I would highly recommend this. Lovers on the Bridge. Juliette Binoche. I saw Juliet for the first time in The Unbearable Lightness of Being. It was in the late 80s. A friend of mine had given me a copy of Milan Kundera's The Unbearable Lightness, which had been translated into English a few years earlier and had made it into the book club edition, which I think at the time I found quite surprising. I liked the book, but when I saw the movie, I discovered her, Daniel Day-Lewis. I was completely enchanted. If you watch my channel, you've known I've done some videos about Valentina by Creepax, and whom I had discovered in the pages of heavy metal a few years earlier when I was a kid. And I didn't see the connection between Valentina and the likeness of Juliette Binoche, but I think at an unconscious level it quite resonated. In the film, Juliette plays an artist who's going blind, that she can't accept it. So she ends up living on the bridge with some homeless people and a performance artist. There's a beautiful scene on the bridge, which I think takes place on Bastille Day, with fireworks erupting in the night sky. This is a quite enchanting movie, and I highly recommend it. And it's, again, another movie that I often revisit, The Lovers on the Bridge. Cashback. Cashback is either a Scottish or English film. I don't remember. And if you see this, it's a rather misleading picture here. It's not an exploitative film at all. It's about a young man who breaks up with his girlfriend. And that's the young man right there. And what you see here is just male fantasy. And it's a fantasy that he has at one point in the film. What it is about a young man who breaks up with his girlfriend for no reason. He just breaks up with her and then immediately regrets it and develops insomnia and the ability to stop time. So he has insomnia, and not a debilitating form of insomnia where you're exhausted. He's 100% the entire time. So he gets a night job at a supermarket, and he discovers he can stop time. And when he does, he paints women, the women that he sees at the supermarket or anywhere else. But he falls in love with one of the girls that works there, this girl right there. It has, again, another beautiful ending. And again, it's a movie that I think about quite often and often revisit. Cashback. Now, this next film, I think most of you will be familiar with. It is Amelie. I remember seeing the preview to this on some television program, may have been on PBS, when they were reviewing the film. And I was just quite enamored by the preview. And when I saw the movie, it was just a remarkable thing to see on screen. Amelie is a young girl who lives in Paris and wants to make other people happy, including her father. And there's wonderful scenes in it that involves trolls in a way to make her father basically leave his household and travel the world. Now, she's unable to find happiness for herself, and is very good at finding happiness for others. But she is in love with a boy. And now the music to this film is beautiful, absolutely enchanting. And the ending to this, I think, will bring a tear to your eye. It's just so well done. And it's something I often think about, especially since when I saw this film again, it had been after watching Irreversible. Those of you familiar with that film, starring Monica Bellucci, directed by Gaspar Noé, it's a very intense, horrifying movie, but beautifully executed nightmare. It's a wonderful film in the sense of what you can do with filmmaking. However, it's a very disturbing movie. And at the time, I was reading Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy as well. So I was reading Cormac, and then I saw Irreversible. I couldn't sleep, and normally I could sleep quite well without any issues, but I was too wound up. So at 2, 3 in the morning, I put on Amelie to calm me down and to bring peace to my soul. I'm not exaggerating. If you read Blood Meridian, or you know about it, you know what I'm talking about. And if you've seen Irreversible, what else is there to say? Amelie. And the final film is Paris, Texas. I've discussed this movie in other videos of mine, and it's a movie that I often think about as well. Probably more than all the others, even though I try not to. It starred Natasha Kinski. It's directed by Wim Wenders, who's better known for Wings of Desire, and has a wonderful script by the great and late Sam Shepard, actor, playwright, director, everything, actor and writer, etc. And it also has a Houston, Texas connection. I remember when I first saw the film, I kept wondering, where is Natasha Kinski? That's why I wanted to see it initially. No offense to Wim Wenders, although I had seen Wings of Desire. This is the Criterion Collection edition of it. And when she does appear in the film, even though there's hints of her, there's a foreshadowing of her early on, one is quite moved by the events that take place. Basically, if you haven't seen this film, it's about this man here, Travis, who's found in the desert. He's been missing for years. He has a son who was being raised by his brother and his wife. No one knows whatever happened to him. No one knows what happened to his wife, Natasha Kinski. And then one day he appears in the middle of the desert, and he can't speak. So where has he been, and what happened? Where's Natasha? And where's the son? I mean, well, we know where the son is, but what led to him leaving them behind? Paris, Texas is actually an actual place in Texas. But Wim Wenders and Sam Shepard's Paris, Texas is not only a state of mind, but a state of dreams, desire, hope, loss, and memory. As always, Thank you for viewing.